Hey everyone, coming to you live from the Empire City hot dog stand. I'm very excited about today's level. In fact, I want to get into it right now. So let's look at our next individual Unleashed level analysis. I'm gonna eat this hot dog, chili dog, sorry. I mean, a chili dog is a weird pick, right? What do you mean? Skyscraper Scamper is a busy level. It's got a lot going on, from interceptor chases to arrow chases, deadly drifts to precarious platforming. It throws a lot at you, and it isn't afraid of a little challenge. I typically lump this, Arid Sands, and Jungle Joyride as like your hard levels, right before impossible difficulty. The hand-holding is gone. There are no more tutorials. You're hitting these things with all your past knowledge and doing your best. And because of that, these last three are some of my favorite levels of the entire game. Dare I say, even in all of Sonic. It's why I can't rush them out too fast. You two sit tight, because today, Empire City gets the microscope. So, America is a tricky thing to try and capture. It's so big and so funny. But I think it's smart that they reined in on NYC. Like I said, this level is busy. And so is New York City, baby! A place you can tell just through the sound of my voice that I have never been to. But I feel like they took the hustle and bustle of the urban jungle and perfectly draped it over this demanding course. And hustle is very apropos, as this level also seeks to capture the opportunistic grind of the early morning rush. I always imagined this level took place right as the day started, like Sonic, along with everyone else, was getting up bright and early. I saw the clouds as morning fog. I thought the cars were going to work inside the buildings. The place feels proud of how busy it is, just like how many of us in America are. And because of that early morning energy, Skyscraper Scamper can take you around 3 minutes to finish, but that can drastically vary depending on the amount of fun shortcuts you can take here. It's a tough level to get down correctly, and it surprisingly uses a lot of its environment to add to the difficulty. Just count how many ways the lighting throws you off in this level. But don't work that brain too hard. Let me take the reins and point out a bunch of things that I probably got wrong. The early bird gets the worm, so let's shut our big mouths and crack into Skyscraper Scamper. And if you're watching this level, then you know I gotta talk about this start. So in Rooftop Run, I explained how Sonic typically has this stationary shot before he starts. Hold, rotate, fire. But not all the time. Cool Edge has a great arc while Sonic is in motion, and it's powerful because it captures such a wide area that feels like it has no boundaries. So much distance, so much potential. The only other level that rotates around a moving Sonic is Skyscraper Scamper. See, in Cool Edge, that arc of Sonic in motion is selling the vastness of the icy landscape, but in Skyscraper Scamper, it accentuates the height of Empire City, with skyscrapers, wouldn't you know? But we also got these wild curving freeways that almost seem to tie into one another. This pretzel of concrete. They look busy, and their crazy nature sells us on the frenzy of the big city. But of course, we got our main highway in the center. This thing is essentially a giant slide for Sonic to pick up speed on. Considering we only see the bottoms of the other freeways, our first real road is spotlighted as the craziest. It's steep, it looks dangerous, and the perspective helps widen it out near the bottom. It's a fantastic chute to roll Sonic down. My only nitpick here is you lose Sonic in that giant Reddy flying on screen. The camera still tracks him, so we know where he is, but still. I love seeing Tiny Sonic. Where's my Tiny Sonic? But after that, boom, hard cut to these toll booths. Sonic smashes through these barriers right as he finishes shouting go. It feels ceremonious, like you're cutting the ribbon to this big course. And of course, the lighting here highlights our first set of rings in the lane that we are already prepped for. How about that? Okay, this next section is really fun and kinda long, so I'm gonna break it into two parts. Let's start with Freeway Frenzy, Part 1. I know I've already yapped about the skylines before, but look at that view. Skyscraper Scamper keeps its depth obvious, with all these separated buildings marking different distances on the skyline. And they snake this highway across the horizon to keep our headspace in busy city mode. There's also this dark plume of smoke too. These are peppered around the level. I believe they're parts of the fog, but I think they can also represent exhaust, being that we're sprinting down a highway. The camera ratchets back for the money shot and then plunges down with us as we head for another set of toll booths. Smashing these barriers is such wish fulfillment for Sonic fans, especially if you have us running through a literal roadway. It feels appropriate. Now we got a right-hand turn coming up. You can drift around these cones or catch this rail on the left. Both set you on your path. The roads of this level also provide a perfect opportunity to throw in some racetrack elements as well, like these safety cones. The toll booths can even be visualized as starting lines to snap through. And I don't think I need to mention it, but these road sign arches contain a ton of references to everyone who didn't show up in Unleashed, like Shadow, Rouge, Silver, and Parking the Hedgehog. I always wished we saw these characters in all the hub worlds, just like hanging out, traveling, on vacation. Look, Silver doesn't even need to unlock a temple. He can just eat some ice cream and I'd be happy. Anyways, keep your head back because we got a big loop coming up. This is one of the biggest in the entire game, and they spend some time on it. It takes 2 whole seconds to finish this circle, which seems short, but considering the speed of Unleashed, it's definitely noticeable. It's also super wide, using the entire 3-lane road for its path. They put 15 damn dash pads on this thing. 9 cover the start, and 2 pairs of 3 help Sonic clear it, before he again refuses to pay the toll and blasts onto this girder. The sky is also empty here to emphasize the height. Only the tips of the skyscrapers enter the screen when Sonic reaches the top. And of course, the camera stays low to track our favorite little guy, Tiny Sonic. It truly is a big loop, and if you're boosting through it, then the song kicks off right as you finish this thing. Alright, things are gonna really open up now, so let's move on to Freeway Frenzy, Part 2. Getting real Dragon Road vibes, says guy who just made a Dragon Road video. Sonic has ground this great girder, and is met with a trio of arrow cannons, ready to turn him into Swiss cheese. But screw those bozos, check out this weird structure crossing over in the distance. I never really put 2 and 2 together, but this bridge here is actually your exit out of the scene. Your objective is to circle around this building and get to its start. But there's actually 2 directions towards this bridge. Let's start with the obvious. Forward. Finishing with the 3 arrow cannons will direct you into this dash ring, but it's important to know that each one is positioned separately for you to catch any of these rails. So this next curve is tricky, and let me make my case for it. The game actually gives you a lot of leeway out of this thing. The rail on our left will take the turn for us, and if we shoot forward, we'll just hit these ramps that'll bounce us towards our destination. But it's pretty tough to see these things in the distance. Our exit bridge covers them for most of the time, and even when we finish with a toll booth, we still don't see those ramps, because this road sign arch is hiding them. Well, we got our escape rail on the left, right? But you might not catch that one either, because the arches are draped with stoplights, positioned perfectly to hide that rail. What a bunch of assholes! And even when we catch a glimmer of that ring trail, we still gotta shove that bouncing debris out of our face. One of my main takeaways after analyzing Skyscraper Scamper is that it tackles challenge in a really interesting way. See, it ramps up the difficulty not just through the course, but through the environment and the lighting. Our decorations are hiding track elements, and the shadows here do good work in blurring our exits. That's pretty crafty. I'll have some more examples later on, but keep a look at it as we go through. You'll start seeing it more and more. Anyways, keep your fingers off those triggers and head for the trick jump panel. Now pay attention here, because this is one of the first and only 5ers in all the day stages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inputs, and you got just 3 seconds to do it, so it might catch you by surprise and send you down below. Down here, we got 4 robots and a couple of spikes. Make that 6 robots, because once you clear the first straight, you gotta go over more spikes, hit this wide spring, land on the platform, light dash into a blue spring, and 2 quick time panels follow that. Whew! Talk about a punishment path. But hey, what if we clear that 5-piece trickin' dinner jump panel? Well, doing that will send you sliding down through this tiny gap. Wide spring, bounce pad, and we're out. That little slide shaves 13 seconds off the bottom path. Hot damn. Some of those routes can take you up to 30 seconds to get to this bridge. It's a bit of a journey, but check it out. I'll show you how to clear it in 4. Next time you're homing onto those arrow cannons, jam Sonic left after our second friend here. You'll find a spinner and a light dash waiting to skip you over that entire section. You're welcome. Alright, we got to our exit, but we still got some highway to handle. You boost down this gorgeous tunnel bridge with some pesky bombs lying in your path. The dark underground aesthetic here looks awesome. I love how it's illuminated in sections with these yellow lights. Even better, we got these open air slats in the roof to let some natural lighting in. Kinda like the Merlons in Dragon Road, these things help amplify the speed with their spacing. You get a way better example on our next tunnel, but before we tackle that, we gotta survive the drift of death. Okay. I know I'm being dramatic, but hear me out. First off, I will eat crow and admit I didn't represent Unleashed's drift fairly in my rooftop run video. You should not boost on drift, no matter how fun it may seem. But you drift experts at least gotta admit to me that this move takes practice. When I see newbies take this turn, they almost always go right over that edge. As did I on my first go, and my second go, and my 4th go, and my 15th, and my 27th, and my 53rd, my 4008th, you get the idea. For my S rank, I literally resorted to doing the jog of shame and just laid off the triggers. This thing scared me, and it should, as this is Unleashed's only mandatory unprotected drift. Even the one earlier in the same level can be skipped, but there's no getting around this one. You have to take this turn to progress. barring the hop-skip teleport. Savannah Citadel is fenced in, Rooftop Run has rails, Cool Edge has curves, Dragon Road has dash pads, Jungle Joyride has a lot of room. Even Arid Sands at least gives you some robots to save yourself. But oh man, Skyscraper Scamper gives you jack shit. And for that, I love it. If you're wondering why it ate you up on your first run, it's probably because you didn't see it coming. Like, literally. The missing barrier is hidden in shadow. It is tough to spot. The speed tracker also hangs around that part of the screen when you exit the tunnel. So this goes either one of two ways. The lone shadow and moving HUD element helps signal the open portion early on, or the actions of all these things blend into the level as you stare forward. I was victim to the latter. And to trip you up even further, the camera turns with Sonic. It does not reveal this gap until you're in the danger zone. They position the goalpost about 3 seconds away because they know you'll need it. This thing does not mess around. You might not catch the missing barrier, but you will see the road that descends as it turns. It's practically begging for a drift. You can almost see the hypothetical Dark Souls bloodstains through these skid marks painted on the road. The action is instinctive, which is why I think a lot of players attempt it without much practice and fly off the edge. Unless you S-ranked Savannah Citadel Act 2 before this type of dangerous drift is probably new to you. If there was ever a signal to pay attention in Empire City, this is it. The next tunnel showcases a longer stretch of that interesting lighting technique, as now you can really see both sets of slats reverberating through the roof. There are more bombs here, but nothing you can't get around. The tunnel ends with a jump panel, and then you go full Spider-Man as the springs ahead of you send you running straight up the approaching building. Again, great shot. Almost matches the 3 lanes we got on the road earlier, huh? You see that? And of course, we end with dash rings that will give Sonic a fun twirl and land him in front of these cylinders. Alright, remember in Dragon Road when I whined about the platforms? This is the only other platforming section in the game that I don't particularly enjoy. But not enough for me to go crazy. So you got 2 cylinders you gotta traverse here. Kinda 3 with this last one hiding in the background. Straddling these things with Sonic's movement is hard enough, but we also got these massive spike slabs, which I believe is a reference to New York's anti-homeless architecture. So neat! The bottom cylinder is straight, with 3 sets of slabs, while our higher path curves a bit and only has 2. It's easy to spot the first 2 slabs on the bottom route because of the lighting, but the top route slabs are both super darkened by the shadows. Again, lighting as an obstacle. You love to see it. As I said in my Dragon Road video, Unleashed's constrained platforming challenges can be frustrating for me. Unlike Dragon Road, however, this area can be skipped pretty easily through your forward momentum. If you find an opening, you can just boost down this bottom cylinder. It's only when I attempt the higher path that I start feeling the pain. Unleashed's controls just don't feel built for this type of cautious movement. That's not me calling it broken, however. I think this set piece is functioning as they wanted, and I can appreciate the challenge of balancing Sonic with this type of handling. It's just not what I come for in Unleashed. But cylinder number 3 checks all of my boxes. It's just as perilous, we get more curve than ever, and it's got enemies to twist us up. But we can use our instincts, home between them, and finish the platform quickly. The flow is obvious to the player, but the danger is still present. It's not even using my preferred camera angle for Unleashed platforming, and yet I still enjoy it because the path is fun and efficient. What I'm trying to say here is the punishment is cautiously walking the platform if you're not using Sonic's tricks, and that's much more up my alley. I've gotten into a rhythm now of finding opportune spots to boost in this area, unlike Dragon Road's platforms, and the game even seems open to it. The length of the cylinders encourages those big jumps if you want to get risky. Even the distance seems measurable and safe, you just gotta find the right moment. If you do attempt the bottom tube, you still have some more platforms and roofs to jump over, but the top tube will skip this area entirely. So to sum up, I still don't love this type of design in Unleashed, but I think it's a huge step forward from my problems in Dragon Road. It doesn't feel like it stops me, it feels open to be skipped, and for my speed freak brain, that's enough for me. But let's keep going. Finishing up with our cylinders will have us turning around this corner, with a row of egg fighters and a jump. Homing the first will put you right in place to boost over the ramp. If you manage this, then you can light dash these rings and make it to the other building. If you take the ramp boostless, then you'll just have to tackle some arrow cannons and spring up the building. And when you do, you get this grandiose shot of a massive blimp sandwiched between these 2 buildings. As far as we know, blimps fly high up in the air, and yet the skyscraper beyond it reaches even further. AKA, damn, we're getting up there now, aren't we? Something that I find hilarious, though, is that the light dash will give you this exact same shot. They didn't want you missing it. You gotta see the blimp, man. As you land, a dash pad will redirect you right, and you will fly into one of the smoothest 2D segments of this entire game. The start of this section always stuck out in my mind, and I tried to pin down why. My answer is that it's visually interesting. a rudimentary way to put it, but let me explain. The geometry is pointing in so many different directions. Your jump already gives you 3 freeways, with our middle one warping in a crazy way. The big road sign arch circles this trail of shrubs popping out of it. Plus you get these toll booths pointing towards your destination, and the lines on the street, and the grass in the middle, and the rings, and the light posts, and Sonic, and yada yada yada. Look, it's funky, okay? It's memorable, and we catch all of it because the camera isn't fully 2D at this point. It's angled sideways. None of these lines are flattened. They all splay out. It's busy, and it matches the vibe. You know, this whole section feels strange. Visually. Something about it never added up. And then I realized this is the part of Skyscraper Scamper that goes full-on Sonic level. The visuals are now just coats of paint over purposeful gameplay geometry. Everything up to this point fits into the narrative of the city, the story of this early morning rush. The freeways are sharp, but they are freeways. The cylinders are there, but they connect. The roofs are believable. The space makes sense. But once we hit this 2D section, the game abandons all of that. The roads pop off of other roads, the highways in the background intersect with the buildings, windows are glued right next to the streets, sidewalks are fixed upon walls, it's totally Sonic'd up. The geometry also gets very sharp here. Almost all other roofs we've encountered have lips and boundaries, but these are just textured blocks. You get real up close and personal with those distant repeating textures. In any other area I'd levy a criticism here, but I hold back because it's only saved for this single 2D section in the entire level. Some players might find it jarring, and I think that's warranted. But this 2D section flows beautifully, to the point where you don't even care what's around you. There's no puzzle elements and barely any slowdown. Almost every track element here throws you into another. This route also only has 3 enemies. Each one either avoids interrupting your flow or provides an opportunity for movement. This egg launcher over here will almost always miss you. This egg fighter knight is positioned for you to easily bounce from and hit the pulley that's already extended. No killing required. And the last egg shooter lets you home fast into this last area. Like I said, no slowdown. There's a lot of little tricks here too. Stomping the egg launcher to get to this higher area, boosting on these ramps to immediately grab this zip line. It's all pretty nifty. This part of the stage felt really smooth to me, which is why I call it Flow State Freeway. I don't do a lot of planning here, as it all connects very well. It's one of my favorite sideways segments of this entire game, and it also bears a striking resemblance to the 3DS modern Sonic stages for generations. 3DS Skyscraper Scamper? Empire City on the go? Anyone with me here, please? Whatever. We've talked about this too long. Let's blast through these glass window panes and fly into our next set piece. First off, what a jump, right? Don't fail this, by the way, or Sonic goes sailing into the Atlantic. But we don't see that sea, do we? That bed of clouds from Dragon Road is back, and hot damn does that bridge extend into the horizon, to the point of blurry. And once Sonic does his cool-ass moves, we cut to the camera waiting for us on the bridge. Yet again, Unleash tracks a tiny Sonic. And I am happy. But he's not the only one running towards the lens, as this big guy tries to merge into our blind spot. When I was slowing the footage down, I wondered why the hell the camera dips like this. And then I caught this random crap flying into the air. Those are actually some metal frames from the bridge that the Interceptor knocks into the air, and I believe the camera is tracking it. The Interceptor does this throughout the chase, but my brain never picks up on it. I believe it's because we see no obvious impact with the Interceptor's shoulders. The frames just kind of pop off themselves as he passes, but it does add some destructive fun to the scene. Anyways, so our bomb placement is interesting this time. They go in a simple zigzag pattern, and they are near constant, each with just a second in between. There's also no double bomb placements. Even Dragon Road gave us one at the end, but Skyscraper Scamper is all singles. Our only interruption comes at the end. We get an extra half a second before our final 2 bombs appear. The chase is painless to navigate if you memorize it. It's also 10 seconds shorter than our friend in Dragon Road. By all accounts, it should be easier. But I have a much harder time with this guy, and that's when I looked at the ground. Look at all these shadows! They get so busy! This shadow is off-center with the middle lane, our space on the left constantly reverberates with these long X's, our line on the right has all these bars repeating throughout, and everything is casting a shadow in the chase. The rings, the bombs, Sonic, even the stupid spaghetti strands firing into the air. Plus this bridge is varied, the cables will interrupt your floor pattern, and the supports will cover everything when they come into view. So ultimately, I don't think this chase is hard, but the space sure is. It's trying to trip you up constantly during a section that is forcing you to pay attention to your surroundings. I mean, look at Dragon Road, the Merlins are barely noticeable here, but the EC bridge is just getting in your face constantly. This chase almost always tripped me up, and I only figured out why in this moment. It gave me a lot more respect for it, and it clued me into Skyscraper Scamper's brilliant use of lighting as difficulty. However, we're not done with the bridge yet, as Sonic takes a left-hand turn and enters an arrow chase. Anyone else kind of wish this was just one long bridge? Anyways, arrow chase time. You know I love these, and what an opener too. We always go 2D for the arrow chase entrance, but seeing this on the bridge makes it feel like a high-speed car chase, where the car clips through the metal. So this chase gets a little spicy. Our arrow chasers are dropping more than just tutorials this time, but they're still teaching us on the fly. Fire bombs will be deployed, and the flames do not go out, essentially making these lanes no-go zones. You also get the electricity traps that will extend across the entire street, requiring a jump. Hey, maybe you're catching on along with me again, but these are the same hazards our interceptor friend has, but translated to the chasers. Fire bombs act as normal bombs, the electro strips act as the ground pound, and we still got lasers in all 3 lanes. The nice thing is the chasers' attacks aren't as fast, and you can interrupt them by bumping the fighters. But how are we taught these new attacks? Well, if we follow the egg fighters, we shouldn't have too much trouble. Aiming towards our first dude will automatically put us between the first 2 fire bombs. The rings can trick us though, watch yourself. But now the rings are in the center, with eggs on the side. Visually, these tasty rings are giving us an opening. What also helps is they drop the electro strip early on. They do the same thing with the fire bombs too, but that first egg fighter's explosion can mask them a bit. Here, we're given a lot of time to prepare, and after that, they kinda let you run wild. Your ammunition is more abundant, and the chaser's attacks can be negated finally, as you have enough fighters to bump and clear the airspace. At the end, we have a lone bounce pad, silhouetted before this bank of white clouds. For the longest time, I thought this was a straight drop, considering the cones, but the cloud is just masking more freeway. You can even run over there by accident, but since we're good on purpose, we'll spring up 3 times and prepare our knees for this next set piece. Oh boy, I like this one. I really like this one. You like this one? I hope you do, because it's long and it's got a lot going on. But before we begin, would you look at that damn skyline? It's so jagged and busy, and even this far away, we can tell which buildings are closer through the color, even through all that depth of field. It complements perfectly with the next scene we're about to grind into, because things are gonna get hectic. But let's start our descent, as we got a lot to go over. Sonic begins one of the largest grind sections of this entire game by sliding down these girders. These things aren't exactly girders, as they get pretty ornate if you really look at them, but it's all my brain sees, so that's what I'm gonna go for. You get this simple back and forth at the start, but once we jump to our next rail, we finally see what this big building was covering. This crazy corkscrew that plummets straight down, and you know you're going on it, because it's covered in rings. This whole start is filled with foreshadowing. If you look around the space, you'll catch a ton of rails poking out behind towers, before you even hit your first turn. And before that turn, you get this exciting near-miss element, where Sonic barely makes it under this concrete freeway. This is something roller coasters actually do to bump the thrill factor. If you've ever been on Big Thunder Railroad at any of the Disney parks, it always feels like your head's gonna come off before every drop. It's exciting, and Sonic games do it a lot on these rails. Our next turn requires another switch, and then we're given the option to diverge. But let's just go vanilla for now and home our way forward. This path is the only one that sends us to that corkscrew we saw earlier, and the camera gets wacky here. It follows Sonic halfway up the first incline, stops, then tracks him as he makes his 2 twists, and then instead of catching up with the blue blur, it actually drops straight down and rains in on him underneath the corkscrew. It tilts to level with his positioning while he's still vertical, and then we take the sharp turn at the bottom with him. Whew boy! That's a lot of twisting, but it's not all fluff, as it actually interacts with this lone freeway in the area. This thing is virtually meaningless for Sonic, but it's very handy for us. The corkscrew shot circles the support connection here, so our brain catches it, and the support plummets straight down just like we do. It's a handy tool to grab onto in the environment to help contextualize the movement. It also marks the turn at the bottom, and its shadow is basically the starting line for this next part. You don't need this freeway to play the game, but it adds so much to the gameplay by just giving us these visual cues. Plus, it's even performing the goddamn Fibonacci sequence. Come on now. All right. We're now above the clouds, or fog, or exhaust, and we're given a lot of options here. Let's continue with French vanilla and go straight. You gotta make 2 switches here to survive. Your original rail ends with some spikes, but the next one ends with nothing at all, sending us right into the side of this building if we're not careful. This is the one place where I might ask Skyscraper Scamper to throw us a bone. Kinda like the ledges in Dragon Road, the end of these girders are really hard to spot in some cases. The first one looks like it extends further because it connects with the dark color on the horizon. You only catch its end when you get close enough to see the girder against the white rooftop, and even then, you barely get half a second to switch. On one hand, like the rest of the level, I love how the lighting and environment increases the difficulty here. On the other, if someone got a little salty at this moment, I'd have to give it to them. Our next rail will get you to the roof, but will drop you right in front of a huge pack of enemies, who thankfully can be skipped easily. The final rail here skips even that, and puts you right before the last row of robots, and a trick jump panel. But all of that is just one route of this section. Let's rewind to those robots we homed over earlier. I spot some more spinners and a blue spring below, don't you? This spring will send you into some rainbow rings and skip the corkscrew, putting you on a path diagonal to all those rail switches from earlier. We can actually jump to this girder on the original corkscrew path too, but again, you gotta be quick. And you gotta lane switch again soon after, as remaining still will drop you off another girder gap. But our blue spring path will keep us safe. This diagonal path is much more insulated. It feels like a detour into a gloomier part of the city, as not a lot of light manages to creep in down here. And then we get rewarded with the only camera change in this entire section, featuring my favorite player, Tiny Sonic. The camera chills in this open area here, and when we get the change, it holds its position and rotates with Sonic around this bend. Holding straight will shoot you through some dash rings and drop you at the end of where those first rails led. You get another tricky rail besides you though. It even entices you with some rings, but beware, as this sucker is hiding yet another girder gap. Your main rail covers it, same with the dash rings too. You're probably looking over there because you want to know where they lead, but up ahead of you is nothing. Luckily this time, they signal the gap with a sharp contrast in light, unlike our other two friends. Cool, that's another way forward too. But there is one more rail we haven't looked at, and this is the big one. On the diagonal path, you might catch another girder snaking above you. You get some time with this one because it stands out well, this sharp yellow line gunning right. Taking this rail will have you grabbing onto a pulley and landing you onto this large shaded roof. At the end, there's some arrow cannons waiting for you, and a delicious light speed trail. If you've ever finished up on this level and wondered what these rainbow rings were for, this is the culprit. This is the real gamer move, as it skips over the entire 20-second set piece following the girder gallery, and places you right on the path to the end. It's an insane skip. Almost insaner than jumping off the first curve here and skipping the entire gallery. Thank you, HD Playground. But this one skips the area after that. But I don't want to skip the area after that. So let's go back to that trick jump panel with those springs, and continue forward onto this bonus set piece. I always forget this part is in the level. I get so transfixed with the rail grind before it, and then I'm like, oh shit, another set piece. And now we finally get to talk about the wall runs. For lack of a better term, these things are just so fucking cool. I love how obvious the motion blur is. I love that crooked Dutch angle, and I love that these can actually be challenging, as presented here. While I see Missouri's run used for teaching and Arid Sands used for spectacle, Skyscraper Scamper uses it for challenge. You are hit with 3 different runs, back to back, while avoiding some tricky bomb placement. So this row of bounce pads will send us up the building and start the run. I like the little addition of the bridge up top. It sets you up for the set piece. You go, oh cool, sky bridge. Oh, I'm on a sky bridge, okay. The other thing you see are these hedges. Both sides of the building have these. Maybe it wasn't intentional, but it at least told my brain on the run up that I'm not heading towards the sky. There is a barrier, which prepares me for the sudden directional change. My one stupid nitpick I wonder is, why doesn't Sonic just speed up to the last bridge and then cross over? Maybe this could have been solved by lowering the hedges, using them as a barrier between each increase in elevation. Alright, so bridge 1 is easy. We only get a bottom bomb halfway through and a top bomb at the end. They place you in the center lane, so going straight will get you home free. Now we get to Bridge 2. We get this camera change as Sonic arcs into his next path. The area is a bit dark, but we got that white dust cloud Sonic is kicking up as he turns. Looks so cinematic. And we're on to Bridge 2. So I believe you are placed at the top lane here if you followed the rings, which a lot of people do. Again, away from this first bomb, but in the path of the second. It just requires a switch back and forth. And finally, we get our first double placement, which consumed the bottom 2 rows. Our top path, though, invites us in with more shiny rings. Yummy. If you take a bomb to the face, the game will typically have you landing at your start with the springs, since your momentum will carry you over there. If you crunch on explosives the other way, then you'll smack into an invisible wall and plummet to this shaded rooftop with 2 egg launchers and some rings for your trouble. There's a spring in between them to start you right back on bridge number 2. It places you in the middle lane. I like that they gave you a bit of leeway with this section. As I mentioned earlier, this is the toughest wall run so far. They probably assumed people would be thrown off course. Dare I say, they planned on it, just for bridge number 3, the real trickster. See, you leave bridge 2 at the top, you get your sick camera change, and then you are placed again at the high lane of bridge 3, away from those 2 bombs hugging the bottom. The camera only settles in with half a second to spare before you pass these things. If you're like me, then you got nervous because you don't know what lane you're in, so you lane switch like crazy, which will most likely have you running into these suckers. Don't you see what they did here? They psyched us out! What the hell? They put us in a safe zone with the only opportunity of getting hit coming from our panic. very devious team of Sonic. But oh god, is it danger time. You get 3 pairs of 2 bombs each. If you are in the boost zone, then you gotta make these switches fast. And navigating these things is real tricky. The camera angle makes them look like they're all in a line, which means you typically confirm the incoming bomb placement as you pass the last one. You barely get half a second between these things, and there is no safe zone. You are traversing all 3 lanes. And with all that said, I give major props to the sequence. I thought the wall run was a fun gimmick back in the Citadel, but they don't mess around here. They make it a real gameplay obstacle, and with the small tricks they're implementing, they clearly want you to pay attention. And hey, even if you hate it, it's all skippable too. Grabbing that top rail way back when would just go around this whole building. It's nuts. But why skip such a fun, striking set piece? Great work with the environment too. I barely even mentioned that. The ending of each bridge is marked by another perpendicular sky bridge. Your final run has this big indentation in the distant building, with supports dotted between. It almost looks like a ruler measuring how far you're gonna drop if you mess this up. To simplify my weird observations, you are not just running towards another flat building every time. They use fun geometric shapes, lighting, and color to fill in the environment. Uh-oh, here it comes again, but goddammit, it's visually interesting. Gotta find a better word for that. Alright, Adam, enough glazing up these 3 big rectangles. Let's finish the wall run, head up straight, and bounce onto another rail. And hey, thanks for setting us up with that building in the distance, because now we're gonna grind down something just like it. Remember that near-miss element we got with the freeway earlier? Yeah, we're doing a lot of that here. All these supports look like they're 1 pixel away from taking off poor Sonic's head. We've been talking for a while now, so I'll just say super cool and move on. And hey, there's those rainbow rings from earlier. We got another girder gap coming up, and since we got so much momentum from grinding straight down a billion stories, this one is gonna come flying at us. And yes, it absolutely caught me on my first go. I remember pulling my brother into the room just to show him the timing on the switch here. It's insane, even without boost. Remaining straight will spring you onto a rooftop with 3 egg fighter knights, but you can easily slide underneath them and spring back on track. Or skip the rooftop entirely and just lane switch around it. You got one last rail switch here, not essential as this dash ring will save us, but if you want a moon medal, which I know you do, then grab it, but beware the gap. Either way, you finally enter the center of GM Big City and spring down towards our final set piece-ish thing. Let me explain. Alright, so I haven't highlighted any other finish. Why this one? We won't speak long, but I do think it's unique in its approach. Skyscraper Scamper is the only day level where you must defeat enemies to unlock your exit. Every other level has you running into the goal ring, but Skyscraper Scamper drops you from up high onto a rooftop with 5 enemies. They drop you off so high, the first time I played this, I thought I reached the ground level, with that freeway leveling out nearby. But no, craning down further will reveal more cloud. We are still Skyscraper Scampering, and now we are forced to. The goal ring only appears if you kill all 5 of these egg fighters. You can bounce between each one consecutively, so there is no real difficulty here. Just do your homing chain and wrap up. But why? I have no concrete answer, but I do have 2 theories. 1, this monument just looks too cool. It's way too ornate, so specifically animated. I wonder if the goal ring was originally supposed to appear in its stead, but then John's Sonic team accidentally spent a week modeling Empire City's de facto art piece, and then the design team said, fine, put it in. Let's force the player to look at this beautiful thing from all angles, and then we'll let them go. It feels like it should be placed at the center of the hub world fountain. However, the big globe is much more fitting for Unleashed, so maybe the monument was moved into the level. My other theory is that this level is just very enemy heavy. This could just be them chasing the difficulty we've seen throughout the level. Even if it's not hard, it reminds the player that they fought some things in Empire City, and they should be proud. That it took a bit of roughhousing to escape from this city. First city escape joke all video, are you proud of me? Last stupid thing I'll say about this set piece. I love how all goal rings lock onto the player, so you'll always be facing them. This makes the final homing attack really satisfying, as you can just soar Sonic into the goal ring before it fully forms. Whenever I hit that final egg fighter and Sonic somersaults into the air, I feel like I want to say, and finished. And that, my paisanos, is Skyscraper Scamper. Hey, think fast, Hedgehog! Alright everyone, it's question time. How does Skyscraper Scamper make you feel? For me, I feel like I'm running through a $100 bill. The market is open, Wall Street woke up. Stretch those legs, it's time to make some paper. I mean, Sonic starts on a road. It feels like he's going to work. But work ain't simple in Empire City. You gotta hustle, overcome the frenzy of the early morning rush. The toll booths, there to slow down others, snap in half as Sonic finishes screaming go. Sure, this city is lively, but we're gonna make it our own, cause that's the Empire City way.
8th grade poetry aside, busy is the word I keep reining in on. But not as an obstacle, almost like an instigator. I mean, look around the level. The cars are endless. The never-ending current of the freeway is an inspiration for the designers. You're not here to dodge the hustle, you're here to ride it. Sonic's smile gets us through this. His optimism in all these levels is infectious, and in Empire City, I feel like he sees the frenzy as a fun challenge. And that translates to us. Even if the set pieces are tough, boy are they exciting. Skidding down highways, back-to-back bridge battles, 3 wall runs in a row. This shit ain't easy, but if you lock in, you're gonna feel electric. Skyscraper Scamper also lives up to its name. You never get to the ground level here. It's always separated by a bed of clouds. While other levels highlight the geography of their nation, Empire City is all man-made. Natural beauty is a commodity because the landscape is the city. It's industrial, high up, and most importantly, dangerous. This is not Skyscraper Skitter, it's Skyscraper Scamper. I don't know about you, but I don't scamper when things are easy. Is it fear, excitement? I don't know. Sonic is just using it to tackle this wonderful stage. And yet, Sonic Team doesn't lose themselves in the high-rise aesthetic here. The environment still seeks to emulate its origin, New York City. And the lighting adds a sense of difficulty that I wasn't even prepared for. It feels authentic. Like somehow, for a setting that is so often replicated in the series, it still manages to be its own thing. Because Skyscraper Scamper isn't a city level. It's an Empire City level, baby! Hey, I'm walking it! You talking to me? Jesus Christ. And that's how we'll leave things today. But how does Skyscraper Scamper make you feel? Anything you love from it? Anything that bugs you? Another interesting question, if you had to choose a different space to represent America, where would you go? California coast? Pacific Northwest? The Great Lakes? Idaho? The opportunities are endless. And so are the jokes, my god. But as always, I'd love to hear from you, so feel free to comment down below. If you like this video, consider hitting the thumbs up, turning that bell on, subscribing. People are actually watching these things now, so I should probably start mentioning that stuff. It was nice to look at one level again, but now we're back to another Generations comparison coming up next. That one might not look too different. Maybe a little darker, but no flames. Anyways, thanks for all the support. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.